Hey, Steve Minani here at Burniston Auto Wrecking, doing the junkyard crawl in Burniston, Massachusetts with a 1989 Saab 900 Cabriolet. Now we know that the Saab 900 family was built between 1978 and 1998 in two generations, but the vast majority were two-door hatchbacks or five-door hatchbacks, sedan type cars. Roughly 1 in 20, however, or 48,894 were cabriolets like this. Now cabriolet, of course, is fancy for convertible, but these are very special in many, many ways. And just like Fox Mustangs from Ford were not finished at the Dearborn factory, neither were Saab 900 cabriolets. These were actually finished out at Saab's Valmet plant in Finland. Now Valmet was a Saab-owned business which also did work for Opel, for Mercedes-Benz, Fisker, and even Porsche. And yeah, Valmet did every single one of those 48,894 cabriolets, including this one here. Now the Cabriolet is a unique car. They were quite expensive in their day, and they have a lot of unique features. Of course, unlike the five-door sedan, which does not have a trunk spoiler in turbo form at all. In fact, we did a video on one of those. Check it out in the links in the description here. But the hatchback two-door would have a very different spoiler. But again, these are made of soft material, and that was to appease European pedestrian safety laws. They didn't want people bumping into these things and getting hurt. But again, this is an aerodynamically designed spoiler right here that helps to create downforce when the car is going down the road. Now inside the boot or the trunk on this puppy, we see a similar amount of space to a sedan. However, this is not a hatchback, so there's not nearly as much if you were to look at it. The center stack lives inside of this carpeted area here. It doesn't intrude, so it's a pretty well-designed piece here. Of course, the gas tank and Saab safety, of course, is here located behind the rear suspension, and with plenty of crush room between the bumper and that, so it's in a pretty safe location to prevent fires in the event of a bad accident. But now we got to remember that Saabs were sold in the United States, but certainly all over Europe and Scandinavia. So they have a rear fascia that will accept an American license plate or a big wide Euro-spec license plate. So again, they didn't bother to create a specific USA type rear fascia with a small slot. So again, a bit of one part doing more than one job. Now, this again is a cabriolet, so it has some unique things. First up, the rockers, which on all 900s are kind of cut away right here, which allows you to get in and out a lot easier than having the rocker stick out. However, the section of this rocker is quite a bit larger and stronger than on a hatchback or a sedan. And the point of that, of course, is to restore some of the structural integrity lost when you take the roof off a car. Another detail too, specific to cabriolets, is the fact that the roof, the A-pillar right here, actually is more slanted on convertibles, and it goes all the way down to the base of the frame rail. You can kind of see inside that circular hole where that A-frame continues all the way down into the lower frame behind the front suspension, and that's not something you'll see in hatchbacks and hard-top equipped cars. Another detail is the windshield itself. On other Saabs, the windshield is held in place by rubber gaskets, it floats. While on convertibles, it's actually a structural member. The windshield is glued in place, so you won't see the rubber gasket around it. The windshield is actually a structural component which helps to add stiffness to the A-pillar and the cowl, and again, strictly on cabriolets. Now, inside, under the engine bay, let's have a look here, and try and find, see, how do I get in here? I should know these things. Go up front. Here we go. I love this, like a 55 Chevy flip nose, fiberglass gasser. Yeah, maybe not. But here we have it right here. Now in the United States, the Saab Turbo Convertibles were again all turbos. Naturally aspirated was possible outside of the US market, but here these all have 160 horsepower. The naturally aspirated 2-liter would have had 126, which doesn't sound like a lot, but back in the mid-1980s, 1989 when this one was built, it was a suitable amount of money. These were actually considered performance cars. Now notice too that this is a longitudinally mounted 4-cylinder, not transverse, which is kind of interesting, and of course front-wheel drive, which was standard equipment. And here are those wonderful Saab disc brakes up front. Right here, the caliper has been removed, but there it is, McPherson struts, shock absorbers. And again, pretty easy stuff to work on, really. I've done some work on Saabs in my past, and the ironic thing is that the clutch on these things is up front, and it's actually easier to replace a clutch disc than it is to replace the drive belts for the AC and the water pump, which are in here trapped between the engine and the firewall. So crazy but true. It takes about the same amount of time to do a belt change on one of these things as it does a clutch disc change. And I'm not talking about refacing the flywheel, but if you just have to change the disc, it doesn't take that long. Okay, let's change places. Shane, if you want, you can open this door. I'll meet you on the other side, and let's look inside this groovy cabriolet. And this is an original paint car. The black is very tasteful. And again, this is a 5-speed manual. There it is right there. And like all Saabs, the crazy ignition key is located down in the middle, right here, right where sand and sugar and, you know, cinnamon donut fudge winds up in there clogging these. I remember these were a classic issue. You had to change out the lock barrel on these on a regular basis because it's a magnet for sand. But it's a good design from a safety standpoint. You won't get cut up by it if you get in a crash. Now here is look at the back seat. Another thing on cabriolets is this area down here is taller and has a box structure right inside of it. There's a beam that again helps to add some torsional rigidity to the roofless bucket body that is the cabriolet. And of course, like all Saabs, safety is the theme. Headrests right here to prevent whiplash, front and rear. Beautiful leather interior on this puppy. And, you know, just a nice Swedish design from front to back. You know, Saab and Volvo were the cars from Sweden. And again, roughly 1 in 20 Saab 900s built between 1978 and 1998 were cabriolets like this one. And again, that total number was 48,894. Price on these was about $22,000, which is $4,000 more than the next best Saab hardtop or hatchback. So a pretty exclusive and exotic car. The word is that this car and the 4-door hatchback were purchased by somebody, and they're going to be saved. Apparently, they're on the way to a guy who's going to restore them and bring them back to life, which is good because these are kind of cool cars. Again, 80s turbo cars were considered high-performance vehicles back in the dark days when engines were getting smaller and smaller and fuel economy was king. But again, the Saab turbos with 160 horsepower were fairly quick cars, 0 to 60 in like 8 seconds, not too bad. Top speed about 128, 129 quarter mile and maybe 16.5 seconds, enough to get your attention. But again, with the top down, how cool can it get? But so that's the story on the Saab Cabriolet, the 900 Cabriolet, a second generation version right here. So, you know, being saved happily here in the junkyard. Now, if you like this video, be sure to click on the description for the video on the 4-door Saab Turbo sedan, which is similar but very different in many ways. So if you like this video, check that one out too. And beyond all this Saab stuff, these Saab stories we're telling you, there's a lot more to come here at Burnston Auto Wrecking, V8s, Jeeps, all kinds of stuff. Stick around, there's a lot more to come.